How's it going, everybody? It's the CDH Warrior, and
The CDH Dad. How are you folks doing?
welcome to Mondays on Monday. So, let's roll the title, then we'll jump into it. Okay.
And welcome to the start of another week. This is Mondays on Monday. And again, what we're trying to do is we are not professionals. We don't have a medical background. We don't have the medical technology. We're not psychologists. We're not sociologists. We're not psychiatrists. We're not child development specialists. All we are a father and son who have been through the CDH journey. And in our unique situation, not only did we go through the CDH journey, but we also have a daughter who went through aplastic anemia, stem cell transplant, and a lot of those issues. So we're familiar with a lot of the struggles and the issues that plague a family as you're trying to deal with special needs children and those aspects of life. What we're looking at is only from one point of view, and one point of view from a couple of decades ago. So there's been a lot of time, a lot of new developments, a lot of improvements in medical technology, a lot of experience, and a greater success rate in the survival rate for CDH children. In our case, when our son was born, there was a 30 to 50% chance of survival. With time, it has now developed to where, in many cases, it's, excuse me, much more in the 80 and 90% chance of survival. Part of that is the factor that it can be identified much earlier in the pregnancy process. In our case, even though we went through amniocentesis and the ultrasounds and all of the things that were available at that time, we did not know until the day of birth that my son had a CDH and was having to deal with those issues. So fortunately, many of the families now, you're going to know weeks or months ahead of time and can prepare and be in better place to handle those situations.
Yeah.
In our situation, it was one, a son was born at a hospital, really did not have the NICU capabilities, did not have the pediatric surgical capabilities. He was immediately life-flighted to another hospital, and they did surgery there immediately. And by the time I was able to get to that hospital within a few hours, he was transported to another hospital which specialized in CDH. And then we went through a lot of the complications and issues related with that down the road. So part of what we're trying to do is just make available an opportunity to let parents and families talk about the CDH journey that they're experiencing, the special needs journey that they're experiencing, and hopefully being able to help with some answers and let us all learn from the equal journeys that were going on.
Yeah.
Now, part of what we brought up just in the discussion for today is I happened to find this, and I don't know how well you can read this, but
I'll kind of move it closer to the camera so you can read it.
okay, well, there. But this is talking
First
about
5.
this is talking about the first 5 years of a child's development and what to expect on that process. And these are things that we as parents would get in terms of what you expect with your child. But if you have a CDH or a special needs child, you're not necessarily going to hit these same milestones.
Yeah.
And those are things that we have to learn to deal with and understand that it is a developmental journey, but in many cases, a CDH and special needs child, their development and experience level is much more advanced than a quote normal child, because they're in the NICU, they're in the hospital, they're undergoing surgeries, they're going under treatments. A lot of things that are not part of the normal child growth and development process. So some of the milestones will be off. In our case, my son had to have a G tube to be fed. because there was an oral aversion. And even though we working with therapists trying to alleviate that, it was not until he was at a physical position where he could handle solid food and could control that and avoid that oral aversion that he was able to eat. So we went through the G-tube route for almost 2 years. And just to relate the experience, we often tried to go different places and introduce different foods, different opportunities to eat, unsuccessfully. But on one outing with grandparents, my mother-in-law, his grandmother, was eating chicken nuggets, and we were trying to let him just play with the French fries. And he grabbed a chicken nugget, started eating on it, and after that, started eating quite often and on a much more normal schedule. So these are the type of things that, yeah, it's not going to hit on the normal time and development chart of what you expect, but in most cases, these things will develop at their timeline. One of the others, and I see a lot when I look at the reports on the CDH website and look at this, is that most CDH children, their developmental and growth is not quite on the normal chart.
Yeah.
Weight gain is a big issue. And just to give you some idea of where we stand in our experience is while he was being fed with the G-tube, my background in engineering, I would do the numbers and try and run the figures to see where we were. And just about anything that you can grind up and run through a filter or some type of strainer, just to assure that it can go through the pump and go through the tube,
yeah,
you can feed your child. It's basically you're just making baby food in a quantity that can go through a tube.
Yeah.
In his case, what we would do is we would take chicken, pork, beef, cook that, and then grind it up. We went through several blenders over a period of time, chopping up the food. Also, the various vegetables, mixed vegetables, various things like that. So we worked on a balanced diet.
Yeah.
But I would also look at the quantities of things and kind of do the calorie count. And we were feeding 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day in many cases. But yet, he was still staying at the bottom 5% of the weight chart. So those are the type of things that you will see, because the metabolism and those aspects tend to be different with a CDH child. So some of the things just to consider for the...
Two of the things that I notice, and it's one, I'm not trying to jump on the adult's perspective on things, but it's one, two things that I've learned as an adult is that we absorb less, and it takes us more energy to absorb what we actually eat. For example, and it's one I don't normally talk too much about what I do, but I work retail. And I will literally burn, this is just with my job, not counting what I need to maintain normal function. I burn somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 calories in a day. And that's not counting how much you need to maintain weight. That's just what I'm burning walking around. Walking around, breathing, normal day-to-day stuff.
It is. So, like I said, I just kind of wanted to go through some of the things that you're talking about, general milestones and things that you're going to be looking at. But it's also with the child, you're going to be looking at reaching out, following objects, grabbing at things, moving those things in the first 6 months or so. One of the other things we learned dealing with a occupational therapist, and this is where, as a special needs parent, you have to work very closely with the resources you have available and the specialists that are available. But the therapist was able to show us that in transposing from left to right side or right to left side, my son tended to do more with his right hand. If he had his left hand, he used his right hand to support that.
Yeah.
The explanation was because of the surgery involved with the CDH and a couple of thoracotomies and other things involved, the left side had quite a bit of scar tissue, muscle damage, those type things. So his inclination was to use the right hand to help on the left side.
Yeah.
Once we knew that, then we could work on developmental and activities that pushed more that he would have to use that left side and would work more from that direction. It's one we don't know for certain, but we suspect that he may have actually been a natural left-hand person. A lot of the activities he does now tend to be more left-handed.
Yeah.
But because of those issues at childbirth in the early years, he's right-handed in most cases, but a lot of things he does are more from the left-hand's perspective.
Yeah.
So that can cause some issues and concerns longer term. Just some things that you're looking at. Also, it's one with the oral aversion and some of those things. Some of the language development may be impacted and may be delayed.
Yeah.
So this is where you work with physical therapists, occupational therapists, but also speech therapists.
Speech pathology is a big part of CDH treatment. And that's something most people don't think about in the day-to-day, is that speech pathology is a major sticking point.
It is. So, I'm just going through this and trying to see some of the milestones. But in the first 2 years, you will probably see some delay in some of these activities because the development is more concentrated on other aspects of life.
Yeah.
These children are more concerned about being able to breathe and be able to drink and the basic life skills.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more delayed in getting into some of the other aspects of life skills that typical children would go through.
Yeah.
But it's also one sometimes you go through and it helps to go through not only the therapy sessions, but also working with whatever your local and state childhood development resources have available so that they can do assessments to see, is there a lagging issue? Are there cognitive issues that need to be addressed?
And what we're talking about is what's called an early intervention program. I don't know what the one here is called. I've heard through the grapevine about its existence, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah. And it becomes involved because we actually went through this in 2 different states. We were, first child was in Florida. Both children born in Florida, but the first one, my son, went through some of the first couple of years in Florida. And we got to know a lot of the people that were working in that program. And then with my daughter and the issues that she came into 4 years later, we actually knew the early intervention. I think the program in Georgia is Babies Can't Wait.
Babies Can't Wait.
But in Florida at that time, it was Florida Diagnostic and Learning Resources System, which was an educational cooperative that was available. So, look at the resources that are available locally. Talk to your doctor, talk to your pediatricians, talk to your nurses, talk to therapists, and find out what resources are available and make use of those. In our case, we got to be very close to our early intervention development specialist, and they helped us quite a bit. Also, looking at hearing issues. Those need to be checked early in life just to make sure that there are no other issues, other anomalies that
Yeah.
come into play that you're not aware of.
Well, and I think our situation is kind of unique because the fact that we had our early intervention specialist that ran that program as our neighbor one block down, and then the fact that our head of the county health department for the pediatric area was our neighbor literally behind us.
Right. And that
Lynn
helped.
and then Judy
Right.
living on the same street.
That helped in ways, but it's when you also get to meet a lot of people. Many times you've got not pharmacies and healthcare suppliers who you can get involved with, because a lot of times they not only have the pharmacy, but they also have the healthcare and the therapy treatments and nursing capabilities. They have a lot of contacts and resources.
Yeah.
So it's one of the critical things for parents whenever you're going through special needs issues. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk to people and try and get as many contacts and as much information as you can available very quickly. The advantage you have is if you've got weeks or months ahead of birth, you can start working towards what you're doing in terms of the childbirth experience, but you can also start checking to find out what resources are available. So once you bring that child home, then you know how to make contact with those places and say, I'm expecting at some point I'm going to have my child home. I need to know what we can do.
Yeah.
In our case, when we brought my son home initially, we had a central IV line. We had oxygen, a lot of medical technology and equipment that was available that was brought in, and we had to utilize regular visits by the healthcare specialists and discussions with our insurance provider to find out what was available, what wasn't available, what was needed, what we could do. So it takes multiple resources that you're contacting with to go through those things. So it's a factor of trying to get those things in place as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't know what you had to add.
No, there's not necessarily anything I have to add, but one of the things we are going to ask is, we do have a website. It will be available online. It's Mondays on Monday 4 at gmail.com, I believe.
Yeah. It is the email address for this channel that you're watching. I read it relatively often. I haven't seen much of anything come in of the last couple of days, so.
But those are the things. Is where we want to find out is questions you may have, availability we may be able to have to help answer those questions. And it's not a matter that we're going to provide those answers on everything. We don't know all those answers. But hopefully we're going to build a neighborhood and a community within CDH and the special needs community to be able to share and answer those questions, and do this more on a video aspect than we do on the websites and those ends.
Yeah.
So emails and PMs are welcome so that we can have a better idea of what topics we need to address in terms of the short-term and long-term aspects of dealing with special needs. And I believe we've pretty much exhausted our topic for today.
Yep. Not that bad considering it's not quite 20 minutes.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. Hopefully we can help answer your questions. Hopefully we can all learn from one another in this process. So thank you very much, and Have a good Monday and hopefully a great week.
Have a great day. Talk to you next time.